All right, welcome back for the episode of Carnivore Trades. Today is Monday, May 22nd, 2022. If you're not done so already, please give the video a thumbs up, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Come find me on carnivoretrades.com for swing trading alerts and analysis. Anyways, let's get into it here today. So, markets basically flat to positive for the most part across the board. Actually, Russell 2000, the big winner here on the day, up 1.3, I believe, 1.22%. So it closed a little bit off the highs there, but that was the big winner. NASDAQ up about 1/4%, about a third of a percent there, make that. And S&P flat with the Dow down about 40 basis points here. So really kind of a quiet day across the board. Overall, it looked to me a lot. I saw a lot of call sellers at 4,200 on the SPX. That 0DT is very active today. And you notice how we got some literally fake news, no pun intended, this morning about an explosion at the Pentagon right here. We had a little dump and then it, tweet was deleted. But notice how every time we got to 4,200 or above 4,200, some bogus news came out. A couple times it was McCarthy talking about the debt ceiling, and those algos just pushed it away from that. So a lot of calls being sold right in that area in that 0DTE, and that's definitely been a line in the sand here. The last couple of days and I would say moving forward here. You think maybe Jamie Dimon knows that 4,200's probably got to get defended, and if not that, then 4,250 to keep that 4,300 call in the money. So, I mean, something to consider there. Either way, lots of divergences still in play. Again, big tech having a big day. Amazon and Apple were both lower here. Apple, I would say, is a little interesting here. Kind of like a gap up and then a sell, and then a little bit of follow through to the downside here. So back below 175 and back below these pivots, a little bit, I wouldn't say a red flag yet, but a yellow flag for Apple. But on the other hand, you had Meta up 1%, although it did come way off the highs. Microsoft was up again, and Google was up big. So again, really the big tech show. By the way, Google into a nice 618 here. Take a look at these pivots as well. So 618 from the all-time high. And then all these pivots. So a lot of resistance in that area, but it's holding up nicely and, up 1.87% on the day. Again, it's really the same story, right? Big tech, mega cap tech specifically, holding everything up. And even though the Russell had a big day today, I mean, I've been talking about this for months now, big red bar down, inside bar on the weekly, and then a big monthly inside bar on the Russell. So again, big divergence continuing here, where it's just a small handful of stocks doing all the work. Take a look at the Dow transports here. Inside day green up 1/4%, but again, weekly, possible head and shoulder there. Nice wedge, really tight inside of a lot of red. So again, divergence building there as well. Speaking of divergence, take a look at the NDX. I tweeted this out earlier. If we go back really to last year, and we just we'll just throw on our TLT, and this is what I've been talking about a lot lately, is, every time you get a top in TLT, it's preceded, or it's followed by a top in an NDX, and that's really just the way that our financial system works, essentially. But here's your peak, and then another peak there in the Qs, peak in TLT, peak in the Qs, peak in TLT, peak in the Qs. Pretty much even this whole way up, then we get a peak here in the TLT, and then the NASDAQ peaks a few weeks later. Right here, we've got probably our biggest divergence yet. So there's the TLT peak. Where's the peak here in the NASDAQ? Well, that remains to be seen. We're still into, they're still holding it up. So, what can you say? QQQ remains strong here. If we look there on the daily, pretty much a vertical move. RSI way overbought. But again, right now with the light volume, they can keep this held up. My guess is they're probably going to keep it held up into that debt ceiling announcement. If we look at I'm trying to find there we go. So the NQ, here's your point of control here. Again, was a previous all-time high. We came down, hit it, traded through it a little bit. Then we went up here and we kind of went into this zone. So we're in kind of a sell zone right now, and we're overbought into it. But, the NASDAQ doesn't want to go down, and it's really it. We also have NVIDIA earnings on Wednesday. Over under and how many times they say AI, let me know in the comments there how that works. But I think they'll probably hold us up into the debt ceiling announcement. How the market reacts to that, well, I would assume if we continue chugging higher into that, I would think you'd favor sell the news. If we're sideways, then it could go either way. If we're down, then you could pop up. I mean, that's usually kind of how it works. But right now, markets are hanging in there, and we'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Remember, 4,200 is a good line in the sand. I still think there's a lot of resistance, though, at 422 SPY, especially with this broadening channel that's upsloping. And again, where am I getting that from? Well, you can go all the way back to 2021. Yeah, so right there, sorry about that. They extended that to the left. But there's your pivot high in April, previous all-time high. We hit it, went through it, tried to wick above it, and then got rejected. And, that's where we're basically up against right now. And again, still coinciding with that, with a gap fill right in that exact area, and this upsloping broadening channel. So I can't rule out another pop here, but again, like I said, I think it's long in the tooth. But we'll respect it for now. But again, don't forget about those jaws that will snap shut at some point on the TLT, and really even HYG, same thing. I mean, this does not look like bull market stuff here. And I know the charts look great. Everybody's sharing all these bull charts with me now. But I've never seen a bull market start with an inverted yield curve. So just bear that in mind, but we'll respect things for the meantime. We talked about the Russell already. Let's look at the Dow. Again, that 331, that purple trend line there, 331.40. 341.45. That's a good line in the sand. You lose this pivot, it's down to 325. On the upside, probably about 340 there for the daily chart if it can get up there. Onto the semiconductors. So those backed off a little bit. We talked about NVIDIA. They have earnings Wednesday. I would assume the semis probably just pause until then. But AMD was up big again today. That continues to be strong here. Really still inside of that green bar from last Thursday, but it's holding up well. I still think I would say the semis probably pause into NVIDIA earnings. And again, we still have this big kind of wedge pattern that is tightening there, and we're close to the upper end of that. Doesn't mean we can't wick through it a little bit, especially if NVIDIA has a good quarter. It says AI enough times. IGV here holding up well. This actually acted really well today. Oracle has been a powerhouse, although it did come in a little bit off the highs. Microsoft makes up a big chunk of IGV, and that was up 89 basis points, so that helped it out a lot. But again, you're kind of coming into the double top there, and then going back further, you can see this previous all-time high. We tagged it, so again, a POC, right? Another one right there in January. You see all these levels are coinciding, right? From that kind of 2020 to 2021 high. And then you see that the low there's a low, right? And then we kind of got close up in August and we couldn't get there. So maybe we can get there now. It also coincides with the 100 MA. So again, lots of levels coming into play here, a big convergence going on. That tells you that there's, definitely, like I said, a convergence or some type of nexus coming up soon here. Dow Transports, we talked about a little bit, up 0.5%. Or 0.25%, tightening range here. Possible head and shoulder there as well. But again, not making new highs, and it hasn't since February. How much longer can this divergence go on for? Probably about as tight as this range can get, right? So that's the answer I'll give you there. If we look on the weekly, that's coming to a close around, guess when? June OPEX. So we'll see about that. But that's the transports for you there. Bonds here still getting rocked, right? The 2-year down 7 basis points today, almost took out Friday's low. We've talked about that, obviously. TNX higher today. That's the 10-year up 0.75%. 30-year, this is starting to climb a little bit again. Now you have a lot of resistance up here around the 4% area, but this is climbing up. If this pulls back and consolidates, it can go through that. So that is a problem. The market doesn't care about it right now, just like it doesn't care about the transports and it doesn't care about the inverted yield curve, but these things will come back to haunt the market. It's really just a matter of time here, and I can't say that they can't hold it up. They can always hold it up longer, but eventually, the piper's got to get paid, essentially. But yields starting to creep back up here. Diamond out today saying that he expects yields to be higher for longer, which I've said for a long time. But in either case, rates up a little bit here. We'll continue to watch those as always. Housing actually taking a little bit of a hit. So XHB down another 1%. Engulfing reversal on Friday, a little fall through. You got to get through that 20 moving average. If you can do that, then you go down to 68. But that double top is held pretty nicely so far. ITB lost the 20 MA, so nice follow through there. If you take out, we'll just say 74.50, then that takes you down to that 72 handle. So right in that area. But home builders finally showing a little bit of weakness here. ITB down 1.52%. Little overdue, but they're holding up. But maybe on their last legs there. VNQ here, daily inside bar. If that stays inside there, that's set up for a move probably down to gap fill. So 78.50 area. But VNQ again continues to be weak, and unlike the home builders, but it was up a little bit today. So, we'll leave it at that. XLF inside day as well. Again, I don't like the bigger picture. I don't like the weekly pattern. KRE held up really well today, though. That had an outside day. It was up 3.19% and actually closed. Looks like closed above Friday's high. So a little bit of strength there, But I would say 42 is probably going to be really good resistance if you can get there. But for right now, regional's got to pop, big banks got to pop, broker dealers got to pop as well. Got to close above the 50 MA. I think 450 area is still pretty good resistance though, but I got a bid, so we'll respect it. Crude here, just a kind of another inside day here. You are inside of this green bar. That's the positive. The negative is you're below all the moving averages. I don't like that, and I don't like. This is starting to look more. Like if we just clean this up here, and I'll show you what I'm looking at. So right now, because you're below that 20 MA, if you just discount this tail candle, you can go like this. Oops. And what kind of pattern is that, right? So that looks more like a bear flag to me, at least right now. It doesn't mean it can't fail. I'm not in love with it. I would like to pick up crude. I picked it up a few weeks ago, made a quick buck off of it. The fact you're not getting above that 20 MA is a little bit of a red flag. So I'm still neutral on it right now. Back below this pivot, then 68 better hold, because if it's not, then you're going down to the lows, and if the lows don't hold, it's going lower. Ultimately, I think crude will be a mega buy in the second half of the year, but we're not quite there yet. But again, we'll leave it at that. I'm not neutral. I'm not bullish, not bearish on it right now. XLE down just under 0.5%. Again, I don't love the trend line. It's been hit too many times with lower highs. You guys know the drill there, and you're below the moving averages. XOP actually had a nice day at 1.75%, closing above the 50 MA. So that's significant. This can still go. I would say this can go test 130 now, potentially, but I'm not saying it does. It just has a better chance now. But nice outside day there for XOP, and OIH looking better here. That can get up to 270 for right now. If you get through that, then you can get up to 280. But energy, these energy stocks I'm not in love with here, although they did have a decent day today. Nat gas got hit as well. Again, we talked about the 100 MA. That was probably going to be a resistance area. But you do have higher lows now, and the trend is back up here on the daily time frame. So we'll watch that 20 moving average. Will likely get tested tomorrow. We'll see how it responds from there. Dollar index really just an inside day as well, up just 4 basis points. Its pattern's not terrible. And again, we got that weekly close above the 20 MA, and this is hanging in there just fine. So if this consolidates sideways, it's setting up for a move, probably to the 104.75 to 105 area. But right now you do have a little bit of resistance you're coming into here, so you do need to consolidate in order to get through that. And then gold here, obviously slightly lower with a slightly higher dollar, as you can imagine. If this goes sideways, it's setting up for a move lower. Right now, though, the 100 MA will act as support, but if you consolidate enough, it'll probably want to get down to 1900, but nothing terrible there for gold right now. And then silver, a little bit weak, right? So we talked about 2350 for weeks, said that would likely be a bounce level. We got a bounce Friday. No follow through today, though. So a little bit of a micro red flag. Doesn't mean it can't, bid up. If it does, you probably get up to 25.50, maybe even 25. But I think it would likely want to test that 20-day moving average there. You see those trend lines, and again, we're holding that area for right now. So we'll give it the upside bias as long as it holds this pivot and holds 23.50. If you break through that, though, they're probably down to that 22 handle. So just be aware of that on silver. Platinum hanging in there okay. Nothing terrible, nothing great. I like this on the bigger time frame, and I like palladium on the bigger time frame too. I'm just kind of waiting for an entry there. And then copper here, this is weak. Leave it alone. 360 is not going to hold if it goes down there. At least it has much lower chances if it is tested. But right now, I think it probably wants to get down to that low 340s. But it does need to consolidate a little bit more to get through this area. But I'm not in love with it right now. Bitcoin all over the map today. Ultimately just flat, just still holding this head and shoulder pattern, and it's signaling a little bit of weakness here. So we got to respect that. If we look at the weekly, though, the weekly is still okay. So don't be surprised if this does get one more bid, because it's hanging in there, and that 20-week moving average is catching up. But the daily is still on the softer side. If you lose this pivot, then I think it's likely done. But for right now, it's holding up, so we'll respect it. Anyways, lastly, back over to the spiders again. I've said this 1,000 times, but again, 422 gap fill. That's obviously a major area, so I can't rule out one more pop up into that zone. But right now, it's a lot of call sellers, a lot of calls being sold today at 4,200 on the SPX. Wouldn't surprise me if JP Morgan's behind that. So we'll see what we get here. Again, NVIDIA earnings Wednesday, that'll be big. And then obviously the debt ceiling deal. What are they going to do? I don't know. I don't really care. All I care about is the market's reaction afterwards. And we won't know until that happens. So anyways, guys, going to wrap it up here. You guys take care. Come find me on carnivoretrades.com. Talk to you guys all tomorrow.